Hoosiers, who are flying and riding high. Kurt Cignetti has got this program revving. And I think we do have to start with the quarterback here because Fernando Mendoza, a redshirt junior with eligibility remaining, has kind of gained the momentum here in terms of being potentially the consensus top signal caller. I would imagine with the kind of down year with the quarterback prospects, I think it makes sense for Mendoza to declare for the draft.
Well, let me say this. I have to really watch him and study him before I can say yes, he's a legit guy or not. What he has shown in flashes on TV, yeah, there's a lot to like. The arm is there; he can make all the throws. Um, I haven't studied him enough to where I say he's a definite guy that should declare. And the reason I say that is there are a lot of guys I've watched in games where you watch them and go, "Oh, wow, he can do this, he can do this," and then when I actually start studying him, I go, "Ooh, not as good." Or the opposite. Sometimes I see a guy doesn't blow me away. Then you actually watch the film and he's way better. He looks really intriguing. He looks like a very skilled quarterback from watching games. I just haven't broken down 6 or 7 games of film. That's going to be my job the next week to sort of dive into him and see what he is. I want to see if he's legitimately a top quarterback or is he a guy, and this happens, we've both seen it. We probably can point to E.J. Manuel, maybe is the biggest one, where there's always going to be 1 or 2 quarterbacks who get pushed up into that first-round territory when there's no quarterbacks in that draft. So I want to look at him closely before I can say, yeah, definitely come out. And hopefully someone's going to close to him, and I'm sure Kurt will do this, will get him with NFL people to find out what they really think before he makes a decision. That's the tough part for these kids.
Yeah, it's a supply and demand league, right? So,
yes.
And in a down year, a guy like Mendoza, whether you like it or not, he is going to get pushed up the board, and he can spin it. You know, I see him
no question
tight windows. He gives me a little bit of Joe Flacco vibes, a little bit. And you know, I was really I was hoping to see more in that Oregon game against Dante Moore. And I do think Mendoza was the better quarterback of the two, but I didn't come away from that game saying, wow, I want to build my franchise around him. And I think that's the big question, especially if you got take a look at some of these teams atop the NFL draft. Looks like a lot of them are going to need a quarterback.
That's exactly what I thought, Rick. You put it in the best terms possible. Him and Moore in that game, I think a lot of people said, hey, I think the week before there were a few media people saying, hey, Dante Moore may be the best prospect in the country, quarterback, potential first overall pick. So I went in excited to watch it. Moore really struggled. Didn't make many throws that really grabbed your attention. Mendoza made about 6 or 8 throws that said, wow, that's a legit NFL throw. That requires arm talent. That requires anticipation. That requires seeing the defense, making the proper read. But there were also a handful of plays he made that you were like, oh, come on, you can't do that. Clearly, you got to do this. So it was a little disappointing in terms of he didn't jump out and put a stamp and say, I am the guy. But he is, he's basically is a junior. I know he can declare, but a lot of times juniors aren't as consistent as they would be with one more year. So I really have to sit down and grind out every throw. You know me, I'm sort of a quarterback nut job. And I want to see what I see when I actually chart every throw. Do I see a legit guy who deserves to be considered at the top of the draft? Or am I seeing a guy that has immense talent, but that consistency is not there where I'd feel comfortable taking him at the top? Is he more of is he a Baker? Is he a Justin Herbert type guy that deserves to go in the top 5 picks? Or is he a guy that's inconsistent, that the talent is there, and maybe he's more of a 2nd or 3rd round guy with upside? And that's what I have to really grade the film and try to make a decision on. I don't want to put my stamp on him until I've done that.
All right, fair enough. But the Hoosiers do have a slew of prospects here to highlight. So let's get into some of these top Indiana players on the NFL draft radar. Who do you got, Russ?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I just want to make one point. It's sort of interesting. Kurt Cignetti's got Indiana up and running and killing it. We talked about Kansas earlier with Lance, their head coach. And if you look at this list of prospects, there's a lot of similarities in that they both have a lot of seniors. So they've developed these players. They've sort of built up a system where they may not have elite recruits and elite NFL talent, but they have a lot of good, solid prospects. Yep. And that's what you do when you're not at a Texas And when you're not at an Alabama that generally can go get the best of the best. Now, things are obviously different. The NIL's changing everything. But Indiana, it's interesting to see Indiana and Kansas, two programs that historically struggled. How are they doing it? They're building it with strong, fundamental, good players, maybe not truly rare players, but good players. You look all over Indiana, a lot of good players. You look at their skill set. The Hemby kid at running back, good football player, really a hard physical runner. You talk about a kid that's hard to get down. I mean, at 204 pounds, you wouldn't think he'd be able to take the shots he does. And whether it's breaking the tackle or spinning off the hit, he is an impressive football player. We talked about their receivers before, Elijah Surratt, E.J. Williams. Surratt, I don't think gets enough credit. Sometimes he sort of gets disappeared because there's so much going on. But this kid's a really good football player, catches the ball well. And I love that fullback of theirs, the Nowakowski kid. You talk about a hard-nosed kid, came from Wisconsin. He will light guys up as a lead blocker, whether it's from a fullback alignment, whether it's as a tight end. This is a kid that's going to play on Sundays. He's going to be a tight end, fullback type guy that's playing in the NFL, gets a few carries here and there. He reminds me of that kid, the old fullback in the NFL whose the first name forgets me, O'Neal, that played for a long time. There's a little bit of similarity with this kid, sort of a violent physical hitter. And on their offensive line, it's interesting. Indiana's got a handful of young guys and two veterans. Pat Coogan, their center, he's been the guy, keeps things under control. Taller kid at almost 6'5", 310. Really is sort of the general there. And then the right tackle, Khalil Benson, almost 6'6", 320, big long arms, has played guard at times. Really been a stabilizing factor at right tackle. The rest of their offensive line, more younger guys, but they've done a good, solid job protecting Mendoza and giving him a chance to open up this offense. Defensively, we've talked about before, they've got a lot of guys. The Kamara kid, sort of the odd guy, just a shade over 6 foot, 260. Is that going to be big? Like, where does that fit at the NFL level? But for Indiana, this kid's a really good football player. Keelan Wyatt, the other defensive end, about 6'1", 255. So similar size-wise, two guys that come off the edge. Hosea Wheeler, their interior guy, a penetrator, a guy who can make plays. They have three really good defensive linemen there, and Kamara, Wheeler, and Watt, who are going to get NFL looks. Not sure any of them are going to get picked early. I think we're talking late-round PFA type guys, but they play hard. They don't make mistakes. They know what they're doing. They do a good job of keeping the offense from being able to get down the field. They really control the line of scrimmage. Aiden Fisher, the linebacker, we've talked about him before. He may be the best. He honestly, like I said, I can't put a stamp on Mendoza. I can't say how good or bad he is. So excluding Mendoza, I think Fisher's probably their best prospect. This kid makes plays all over the field, tremendous range. I know he's only 6 foot and 2/8, but in the NFL now, 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1". Doesn't matter how tall you are, a linebacker. If you can run and cover like this kid can, you got everything. And this kid's going to play in the NFL. He's a really, really good football player. Then you look, they have the two safeties, and one of them is sort of a safety rover linebacker, even though he's littler. The Devin Boykin kid is about 5'10", 195. He plays like his hair's on fire. He's all over the field. And then Lewis Moore, their sort of true free safety, 5'10", 198. Good football player. He's probably not going to test off the charts or anything, but he's a fundamentally sound guy. Doesn't make that blow up mistake at the back end of the defense. There's a lot to like about how they built this team, how they have so many good, solid prospects, even if none of them are truly rare and special guys beyond maybe Aiden Fisher and, like I said, maybe Mendoza. I can't put my stamp on him because I haven't watched the film yet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Aiden Fisher. I think he might even be a top 50 prospect in the draft because
I agree.
He's going to test better than people realize. He's extremely smart. He can get after the quarterback. He can drop back in coverage. And then we mentioned the Oregon game. He actually played spy on Dante Moore and did a very good job of it. So you talk about a versatile jackknife kind of linebacker. Yeah, he lacks some height and length, but he's going to compensate, right? And he's a tone setter. Like, he makes big plays. He's
all over the field.
All over the field. Aiden Fisher, one of the most underrated players in college football. And you talked about, like, Indiana gets these guys. They're not big time recruits. They come and develop them. And one of those guys who's developing a junior cornerback, D'Angelo Pons, a little bit small, 5'8" and 5/8 inches, probably why he wound up at Indiana, 173 pounds. But you can state an argument now that Pons is one of the premier slot defenders in all of the nation. So this is a guy, he may even test those NFL draft waters and dip his toe into the pool. But D'Angelo Pons, somebody getting a lot of love here as the season wears on.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, when you watch them play, I mean, it's really Aiden Fisher and Pons are the two guys that jump out. There's no doubt Pons athletically is an NFL player. The issue really comes down to height. Every team's going to have at least one of their starting quarters in that 5'8" to 5'9" range. It's just you can't have two or three, because if all your corners are little, then you get into trouble. But Pons is going to be an NFL player. I think he'd be wise to get some feedback, find out what NFL teams think. I think the response is going to be, hey, come into the league. You're going to go in the first 3 rounds, so you may as well get started towards your second contract because you can play ball. He's a really twitchy kid, and twitchy helps make up for the fact that he's not as big as you'd like him to be. But yeah, Fisher and him, they're fun to watch. That game against Oregon, it seemed like every time you looked up, Fisher was making a tackle behind the line of scrimmage in pursuit. He was flying around against Oregon. Their offensive lineman could never get there in time to keep him from getting guys in pursuit. He was really impressive. So I like both of them. I can't wait to